It was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. But again, being of the business, you shut up and you do what you're told to do, right? You know, it's like I remember my dad when Terry Taylor, when he was with my dad, and my dad's like, look, here's the deal, Terry. You've had a good run here. Back in the day, there was like 20 territories or whatever. And he goes, you had a good run. Just do me a favor. Don't go to WWE and get a stupid gimmick. Because if you go to WWE and get a stupid gimmick, I can't take you back. And then he goes and becomes a Red Rooster. You know, my dad's like, I love you, Terry, but you can't wash the gimmick, the Red Rooster, off of you. You're the Red frickin' Rooster, you know. But you do what you're told, right? And so when Vince, I remember when I went for my tryout match. I mean, it was such an honor because he was so excited. I could not have signed the contract any faster. And it was it was like a highlight. You know, my dad wasn't there. Did it on my own, signed this contract. So when they started coming up with the names, that was really when they were doing a lot of marketing on names and the sound of names and what people would remember and that. So, I mean, that's when it was, you know, Skip and Flip, whatever, the Bonnie Donnas, and it was Troy and Travis, and it was the Guns, you know, Smoking Guns. I mean, everyone's name rhymed. It was like a terrible 2 years where your name had to rhyme. And so the Troy Travis thing, you know, and we don't have enough time tonight to talk about it. I mean, I could tell you from the exhausting time and money spent to fly us up and down to New York to make these outfits, and the fact that they'd gotten a fashion designer for our outfits. So we weren't just going to WWE, but then they would limo us to like downtown New York City, you know, to like warehouse area where this unbelievable designer was making this, and the boots were being made in Texas, and it was crazy, and I've got a country accent. So I'm thinking, what in the hell just happened to me? You know, we didn't even know that we knew that we were going to be Tekno Team 2000, but we didn't know we had first names. So, I mean, I remember we were getting ready to go out, and I forgot who it was, you know, one of the ring announcers. So which one's Troy, which one's Travis? I said, Jesus Christ, we got to choose. They're both horrible. And we flipped a coin. You know, like heads was Troy, you know, tails was Travis, and that's how I got Troy, and he was Travis. And, man, the outfits, I mean, it was just total chaos. And I'm thinking to myself, so what in the hell do we do? You know, do we go, hey, I'm Troy Tekno, y'all? I mean, you know, it didn't make sense. But I understand where they came up with it, because when we came to try out, Chad and I had come up with certain moves that I knew met Chad and I's persona, because Chad was the tight end at the University of Louisville. So I knew Chad Fortune from college. He'd gone to play pro football and was on about 4 teams, and then wasn't good with his money and needed something to do. And I was like, hey, you know, good athlete, blah, 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 maybe you could pro wrestle. And that's how I got him his job at WCW. And then at WCW, he was at the training school for like 3 years, making great money, but they kept on promising him that he would get a shot and didn't, promising me to get a shot and didn't, promising me to get a shot and didn't. Matter of fact, I'll tell you a funny story about Chad. Chad, they finally said, okay, you're going to do your debut at Disney. So they bring another guy from the school, which was another one of my homeboys, a guy named Bill Goldberg. Me and him played ball against each other at Tulsa in high school, right? And so Chad wrestled Bill. Bill did the job for Chad. So it was another time when they're like, hey, the match was great, but you know what? I think we want to do a different gimmick with you. They canned that film. So believe it or not, had they gone through with the gimmick on Chad that they wanted to, they could have never done the undefeated thing with Goldberg, because then Goldberg's debut match would have been a loss to Chad Fortune. So kind of crazy little, you know, thing.
Yeah.
So
amazing.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, kind of crazy. So, now again, that was told to me by Chad, and this was way before Goldberg was anything. And me and Goldberg were boys anyway, so that was something that was going on. And there's a whole like Flair incident, and some other things that happened. So Fortune was pissed off. I was going to WWE anyway, and I brought Chad to the tryout. And so I called up like 2 days before the tryout and said, hey, look, I got someone else I think you guys might be interested in looking at. And they go, well, what's his name? I said, Chad Fortune. They go, we've never heard of him. I said, you wouldn't because he's been at the training school for 3 years. Here's the deal. They keep on bringing him out, blah, 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 blah. And they said, what about his contract? Well, I'd already read his contract. And at that time, there was a loophole in the contract that Bischoff didn't know about, so they couldn't do shit about it. But the sad part about it is when I got Chad out of that one into WWE, the contracts got real tight, real quick for the guys that were at the school, which kind of sucked. But I was like, well, what am I going to do? So I was actually at the WCW school with Chad, teaching him some things because we played basketball all the time and football all the time. So I'm like, dude, we're both 6'6". Let's do double leapfrogs, double arm drags, double hip tosses. So we were doing a whole bunch of moves in which people weren't used to 2 6'6" guys coming in and doing. It would be something you'd see from like the Rock and Roll Express or the Fantastics or something like that. And so, and then I was doing like a reverse sunset flip off the top rope over people and some other shit. And so I think that's kind of where it was. We were going to be the tag team of the 2000s because, we were doing high-flying moves and something different. So I understood that direction. Tekno did evolve and became huge. I understand that direction. I just don't understand that direction in Erik Watts, his voice. I would have worn those outfits. They were horrible. And again, next time we have time where we can talk, I could go an hour and tell you stories that would just have you pissing yourself laughing about the things that happened that were just horrible, horrendous with the outfits. It was just too much. I mean, Jerry the King Lawler, oh my God, if we had him on right now, he'd be laughing, throwing up laughing because he was in the back with us when we were trying things on and doing different stuff, and he was such a smart ass. Oh, that looks great, because they wanted us to do our own makeup, and it just looked horrendous. And Chad's boots when he came, they were both our boots were zip up. For some reason, this guy, very famous, so I don't want to torture him, in Texas, sewed the pattern on backwards. So when the boots get to Chad, his calves are going forward. Well, you can't zip them up, so we had to do electric tape. Dude, we've been 6'6", me and him, ever since we were 16 years old, and both of our outfits were cut 4 or 5 inches too short. So then we had to do these accordion knee pads to cover that up. It was just a mess. And to think about the tens of thousands of dollars that spent on just plane trips and limos for us to come up and down and be sized, but they wanted to size us and do all this crap and then just show up at TV and put them on so that no one knew what it was. So you can imagine, no one did, and when we got it, we didn't either because nothing fit. The damn tops were going to zip from top down, which that was going to be a new trend. Right, the girl that did this was a fashion designer for women. It would have looked good. A rain jacket like that, looking good, that flared out at the bottom like a Tinkerbell, would. Not on 2 dudes. I mean, like I told people, I said we look like back in the 70s. They used to use popcorn, and you put it on the gas stove, and it had tinfoil on it, and as it popped, it got bigger, and it popped. It was like open, like gas oven popcorn. That was our outfit. We looked like a bad reflector job gone wrong. And if you saw all the stuff we had to do in the back to make it work, that it was hilarious. It was a joke. It was like a joke on us. And to think about it, and no one meant to have it that way, but it was that way. And so to think about just coming in there and the push that we were getting and things that were happening, it added to it. But kind of talking about what you're talking about before, like, could you tell that something was going to go or not go? The crazy thing about that gimmick is it was going to go. Chad, out of nowhere, got stage fright, and timing-wise, Vince was at like both the shows, and they were house shows, and he stumbled really bad on a few, like just running the ropes, which the guys run the rope 1,000 times, and he just looked awkward and stupid. But that wasn't the demise. I mean, it was. I don't know how true this was, but from what I understand, me and my dad, I love my dad to death, but we haven't always like gotten along all the time. And there was some friction. I mean, most of the time we have, but there was some friction. And so when I was there, shortly after I was there, my dad came in to WWE, and I never talked to him. I never saw him, because the day my dad stepped into WWE, me and Chad were shipped to Memphis. So we were in Memphis. The day my dad left, Chad was fired. They kept me. And I believe with all my heart, I know that Vince was going to repackage me. But I'd been there for a while, and I didn't want to wait 9 more months to be repackaged. So I asked for my release, and from what I understood, that doesn't happen. But I think that Vince and I had a very good communication. He also appreciates, like I said, the whole heritage and all this. And he told me when I first signed, if you're not happy, anytime, let me know. I'll let you have your contract. Well, most people say, yeah, I've heard that 1,000 times. Or some people say, well, if you were worth the shit, then he wouldn't have done it. Either way, from what I heard in the past, is that once you sign the contract, you stayed your whole contract. I actually asked for my release. Vince asked me if I would rethink it. Please don't, leave. And I said, I appreciate it. And I said, but I don't want to wait the whole cycle again with new marketing and all that. He said, I think you'll be interested. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send you your release, and in the same FedEx package, I'm going to send you your new contract. I want you to read the contract, and you'll see I've got big plans for you. And I said, I appreciate it. He sent it, and let me tell you what, the contract was phenomenal. It was everything that he said, and he did have plans. At that point, I just did not want to sit around for 6, 7, 8, 9 months to see if those plans were going to come to fruition. So I jumped back and went to WWE. So that's kind of like the history. So going back to the Troy Tekno thing and Tekno Team 2000, I think that it would have been a really good gimmick, and the responses were fantastic, but it just wasn't meant to be because, between the fact that there was incredible heat going on because we walked in there and we had 3 Raws, I believe. We won all of them. And then there was a Europe tour and a Canadian tour. Me and Chad were on the Canadian tour. Smoking Guns were on the Europe tour. I remember the day before the tour, they had a stockholders meeting. After that, they came up to Billy Gunn and said, hey, give Chad and Erik your all's tickets and take theirs. You're on Canada, they're on Europe. And if I could explain the heat that is, because the money you make on a sold-out Europe tour compared to a Canadian tour is like you make 4 times. So now not only are you taking guys that have been there for a while and switching their tickets, but you just kicked them in the balls. You cut their money by 75%. And I knew that was going to be a problem. And when we got back from the Europe tour, they were going to drop the tag belts to me and Chad on TV. There was such a shitstorm made about that to Gorilla Monsoon and everyone else, and then everyone started powwowing around and pissing and moaning, and I just knew, I was like, oh, this isn't good. That by the next morning, we gave our tickets back to them. We went on Canada's tour. They went on the Europe tour. We came back. We did the job for them, which wasn't the job. They were the champions anyway. My dad was in like the next week or something like that. I was in Memphis. So, I never really, me and my dad talked, but I never really asked him about what all went down, there and why, because in the big scheme of things, it really doesn't matter. you know.